Hey guys, I'm Sulia from WoW Weekly, and today we'll be taking a look at Fell Lord Zakuun in Heroic Hellfire Citadel. These tactics also apply to the normal version. This is a two-phase encounter. It has the armed phase and the disarmed phase. Each phase will give Zakuun different abilities for the tanks to deal with, but this encounter really revolves around pillars that will spawn in waves of shadow that are not allowed to hit it. So let's talk about how that works first. Zakuun will cast Fishes and Crystals. This will spawn 3 or 4 green swords on the ground, and crystal pillars will spawn from them. You can prevent pillars from spawning from 3 of these by having different players stand on top of each one. Once 3 of those swirls have been absorbed, a pillar will spawn from the 4th swirl. The idea is that once the first pillar has spawned, when Fishes and Crystals is cast again, you will want the swirl closest to the existing pillar to remain empty, so that the pillars are closer together. From now on, whenever a wave of shadow hits the pillar, it will deal a big amount of damage to the entire raid. On top of that, the pillar will also deal damage to anyone standing close to it, and a small amount of damage to everyone in the entire raid. On top of this, the players who prevented the other pillars from spawning will get the latent energy debuff. This basically makes them walking pillars. They are not allowed to touch the waves of shadow at any cost, as they will explode just like the pillars if they get hit by them. Lastly, when you prevent a pillar from spawning and get the latent energy debuff, you will not be able to prevent another pillar from spawning until the debuff disappears. This means that everyone is responsible for dealing with the pillar spawning. So how can these waves of shadow spawn? Zakuun has a bunch of abilities that will make them do so. First of all, when Zakuun is armed, he will cast Soul Cleave on the tank. This will deal a lot of shadow damage and put them in an alternate realm, in which they have to dodge waves of shadow. Should they get hit, it will mean damage for the rest of the raid as well. Once the tank is back in the regular realm, some waves of shadow will spawn from them and increase their shadow damage taken by 50% for 1.5 minutes. This basically is the tank switch mechanic for this phase. His next ability is Cavitation, with which he will send waves of destruction, or as I call them, waves of shadow, towards random raiders. The final ability when he's armed is Befouled. This will put a debuff on random players which will absorb heals. When it has absorbed a certain amount of heals, it will fade away, but as it does so, it will explode, dealing a huge amount of damage to any player within 6 yards of the target. So this means that when you get befouled, you should run out of the raid to not harm anyone. So as you can see, there are multiple abilities that cause waves of shadow, which are not allowed to hit the pillars. To deal with this, you want a couple of players to guard the pillars. If a wave of shadow glides towards a pillar, the player should get hit by the wave of shadow instead. This is so that only that player will take the damage instead of the entire raid. This only applies to these waves of shadow though. Waves that would not hit pillars need to be dodged by everyone so that the raid doesn't take unnecessary damage. The players assigned to guard the pillars are not allowed to prevent them from spawning, because otherwise they will get the latent energy debuff. You will have to continue dealing with the pillars and waves of shadow in the disarmed phase. Zakuun will throw away his weapon, which will then pulse damage to the entire raid every 3 seconds. On top of that, Zakuun's auto attack will now cleave to the closest target. This means that the tanks will have to stack on top of each other during the disarmed phase. This phase hurts your tanks and they will require external cooldowns. The new ability Zakuun has during this new disarmed phase is Seed of Destruction. This will put a debuff on 5 players, and after 5 seconds they will shoot out a wave of shadow in every direction. This means that players with Seed of Destruction have to get away from the rest of the raid, but also stay away from the pillars, so that they don't get so many waves of shadow moving towards them. So just like in the armed phase, in this phase you will also need a few players to intercept the waves of shadow that move towards the pillars. At 30% health, Zakuun enrages. With this, he will pulse damage and do cleaving damage even when he is armed. Your tanks have to stack up on top of each other, and you should use Heroism to get through this enrage. Zakuun will also now alternate between all of his abilities. So all in all, what you will want to do in this encounter is the following. Everyone should be responsible for preventing pillars from spawning. Assign a few players to take the hits of waves of shadow that are heading towards the pillars. Dodge any waves of shadow that are not going towards the pillars, and if you get the Befouled debuff, run out of the raid. When Zakuun is disarmed, have your tank stack up. And finally, if you get the Seed of Destruction debuff on you, move away from the rest of the raid and the pillars. Other than the mechanics, let's talk about the coordination in your group. To make the encounter easier, we put up raid markers in each of the 4 corners of the room so we could reference them. The raid leader would call out which swole to leave empty for the pillar to spawn in, and it also allowed easier communication to the tanks for where to go to when they're in the alternate realm in the armed phase. You don't want the tanks to go to the corner where the pillars are and having the shadow waves from them spawn and hit the pillars. In the disarmed phase, we moved around the red marker for the group to group on. The players with the seed debuff would then have more room to get away from the group as well as the pillars. If you like this raiding guide, please comment, subscribe and click the like button to help us out. If you would like to keep up with new videos coming out but you don't have a YouTube account, you can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook at twitter.com/bbmazzy or facebook.com/wowweekly. Also be sure to check out our written content on our website wowweekly.net. For now, I'm Sulia and I'll see you again next time.